Hello, everyone, and welcome to Computek College Learning Beyond Borders podcast with me, Aishwarya Ravi Shankar. As you might know, every time I bring a different personality, a special person with a lot of talents and a lot of new things to learn from. And this time, I have a super interesting person, and she's Sampada Kukade, Vice President, Corporate Communications and Stakeholder Engagement at Skills for Change. Welcome, Sampada. How are you doing today?
Hi, Aishwarya. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining today and giving us this time. I'm really happy and I can't wait to explore your personal and professional journey through Computex Learning Beyond Borders podcast. Are you excited?
I am very excited. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this and really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, sure. Oh, okay, so why don't we get started? Why don't
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about your current role at Skills for Change and what inspired you to join this organization?
Yeah, so currently, as you mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Corporate Communications and Stakeholder Engagement, which is a very long winded way of saying that I oversee all of our marketing and communications for the organization's 25 plus programs. Including our, branding and digital marketing and all of those various aspects. And the stakeholder engagement component of it is really just our partnership development. So, developing all of the partnerships across the organization, whether it's corporate, community, or to support our fundraising department. And I've been here for almost 9 years. January 15th will be my 9 years at Skills for Change. I
Oh,
started
wow.
manager of marketing and communications and kind of continued to expand my portfolio as the years went on. I kind of stumbled upon this organization 9 years ago. I had taken a break from my last job. I took about 6 months off. I did my yoga teacher certification and I got married, and then I was like, okay, it's time to start looking for a job. And I just really loved that it was supporting immigrants and refugees. And my parents came as immigrants in the late 1960s. So, I felt like it held something near and dear to my heart. And so I joined it thinking, okay, let me see how it goes. And maybe it'll be a 1 year, 2 year stint. And now, I'm just feel so passionate about the work. And I think what keeps me here every single day is that, with this charity, you can see the difference that you're making in so many lives every single day. So I sit next to two classrooms of language students. We see clients walking through the door every day, graduating from programs. And I think that just seeing the difference we're making in new Canadians' lives every day in terms of getting meaningful employment and settling in the country, it's really amazing to see that. And I think that when my parents came in the late 60s, they didn't have that kind of resource. So to have that now in place today, as challenging as it is for many folks when they arrive in Canada, it's really amazing to see, and it keeps me motivated every day.
Awesome. So it gives you that inner satisfaction, right?
Oh yeah.
I could see from the way you describe your work, how you got into it, and how to enjoy every bit of it,
Definitely,
right?
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and as I said in the beginning, that you are an interesting personality. When I was googling you, I got to know that you have over 2 decades in nonprofit sector. So I thought to ask you this question. How have you seen the landscape of marketing and communications evolve?
Mm. Oh my gosh, like from 20 years ago, evolved immensely. Like I think that we were still 20 years ago in terms of communications, really relying on mass communications to individuals in terms of promoting, services, really looking at large scale advertising campaigns and things like that to get your word out. And of course, not only has like digital marketing changed. I mean, the year that I started in the workforce in marketing, there was no, Facebook had not even come out. So you can imagine that, from going to that, to the evolution of having the social media channels, to then paid ads and digital engagement and video content, and now with like TikTok and all of these things, it's really
Influencer
come
marketing.
such a long way. I think that certain things that I find really interesting, of course, things that have popped up like Chat GPT and things like that, obviously are going to change the landscape even more as we move forward into marketing and communications. What I do find is that used appropriately, it can actually now be a huge resource to a lot of organizations from a resourcing and capacity issue. Like with especially a charitable organization, you have not necessarily like large budgets to spend on marketing, communications, and things like that. So utilizing AI tools is really going to change the landscape even more in terms of being able to have an additional resource, when you're so kind of strapped with capacity to begin with. So it's a really interesting time. I think that it's really, for me, I'm loving it right now, because I think that there's just a lot of different ways to engage people, and things are moving so fast. But, I did my first Instagram reel for the organization a couple of months ago, and I went on Canva, and I just spent of course, because I can't do it very fast, I spent about 2 or 3 hours just like editing the video. But to see that content, and then to actually see how it attracts folks in terms of the number of likes and the viewership and things like that, has been really interesting. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of things that are untapped in the industry that, I think will be key in kind of learning and understanding over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Since you brought up about ChatGPT, it's a big thing now, right? I think almost everybody, professionals in every industry, they use ChatGPT in some or
Mhm.
the other way, and it saves a lot of time. And we can't wait to see how it evolves in the future, and what will be the new technologies that will be coming up in the next 5 years, 10 years. Who knows, right?
Yeah, who knows? And you just have to kind of go with the flow and learn and understand, because I feel like if you don't, you are going to be kind of left behind, right? In terms of, you got to adapt, and you got to move forward with it and use it smartly. That's the thing. It's like, it's not from my opinion. I know that a lot of folks have the impression, or they think that it's going to replace their job. I still
Yeah.
see, that the human potential there. It's just to use it in a way that can reduce the amount of kind of resourcing that you as a person can only do, right? Like you're a human, you only have 8 hours a day, but it can help to support that process if you use it smartly. I mean, if you write something on Chat GPT, you got to spend some time editing it and make sure that it's
It's
still
humanistic.
exactly. But yeah, you gotta move with it, or I think you will fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So you have successfully combined your experience in communications with a passion for social justice. So tell us, what are some key strategies that you employ at Skills for Change to advance, social inequalities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that from an overall organizational perspective, we always take that lens as we're building out new programs, and really look at the research and look at what's happening within the sector around those that are, have less advantage or less opportunities because of, the way they look, or who they are, their gender or whatnot. And so we always look at that as we're building out new programs, and we ensure that we use that social justice lens, but also keeping in mind and top of mind the intersectionality of folks. So it's really about looking at the intersectionality of someone. If someone is, a Black woman living in a low income neighborhood, what does that mean in terms of access to opportunity versus somebody else who's in a more, wealthy neighborhood who has, the advantage of being, Canadian born or etc. So we always take that in mind in terms of developing programs. But when it comes to communications and marketing, it's ensuring that we have the values internally established around how we communicate and how we put things out. So in our marketing and branding guidelines, for example, we ensure that there is diversity and inclusion embedded into all of our imagery. For example, everything that we put out, we make sure that it reflects the communities that we serve. That's the principle we always use, is that whatever we do, whatever we say and put out there, we need to reflect the communities that we serve. So I think that that's like an important thing that a lot of organizations can really take from. It's not very difficult. You just have that like one sentence as identifying as if you want to reflect communities, then you have to put that out there in that manner. So it's really about that. And it's also about speaking up for social justice issues. We ensure that we put something out on social media, we make a statement, but also we follow. For example, in 2020, after George Floyd was murdered, we put out a statement, just as many organizations did, and then the commitment around ensuring that we're combating anti-Black racism. But of course, a lot of the times, a lot of companies put the statement out, but then that's it. They don't really don't see any kind of action from that. Well, we decided that we needed to do more, and so in putting out that statement, we said, look, we need to have the conversations now about what does this mean? How do people understand what anti-Black racism is? So we started to build conversations through community engagement. And then we realized through that it was necessary to create an entire department that was dedicated to Black community access. And so now we have, we went from one small program to about 5 programs across the organization for Black Canadians. So it's really about like what is actionable. And the statement is only one piece of it, but it's really how can we advance it so that we're actually creating actionable items.
That sounds very interesting, Sampada. So, working at the intersection of corporate communications and stakeholder engagement, how do you balance the diverse needs and expectation of various stakeholders? I think this is a really important question since I'm in the marketing team as well.
Right.
So, I think a great way that I can learn from you and the viewers who are in the marketing or maybe probably in communications will get an opportunity to learn from you and your experience.
Yeah, well, I think that's why it's important to kind of align the two portfolios, because while they seem different, there is so much overlap because of the expectations of your partners from a communications perspective. So I think first and foremost, what we have done here is we developed a partnership framework, which identifies how do you actually vet a partner? How do you go, your organization, anybody can meet someone on the street. What is that process of vetting the partner and ensuring that the partner meets our values as well? So I think, again, everything goes back to your values. And if it's what we do is we do a search online. We ensure that when we're meeting with partners that they reflect the same values that we have before we move forward on any established relationship. We have multiple conversations with them before we actually determine what we're going to move forward on, and we create like a partnership agreement so that our partners know that we're committed to this. We also ensure that a big part of that partnership is the marketing communications and the cross promotion and ensuring that we're supporting our partners through promoting their programs and promoting their services, because it's really important to show that that we are there to help support promoting their promoting what they're offering as well. We do a lot of digital media when it comes to things like if a company is coming in to help volunteer for our clients, we do that kind of engagement as well. In terms of the various stakeholders, I think that the key is to try and keep consistent in terms of, like, if you're asking something of one partner, that you kind of keep it consistent with other partners. And that way you're able to, track and ensure that you're engaging those partners on a regular basis and meeting those deliverables. So we put together now like a whole kind of not just department framework, but also using technology to ensure that, have we met the deliverables with that partner? And if it's going sideways, what are the reasons why? And then getting on the phone and being communicative with the partner to say, hey, you know what, we weren't able to meet X, Y, and Z. These are the reasons why, or you weren't able to meet X, Y, and Z. Why did that happen? How can we kind of like reframe and shift? And we found that way, just the open communication has really, really helped for us to ensure a transparent and open and trusting relationship with our partners.
So your background in politics is quite fascinating. How has running a political candidate influenced your approach to your current role?
I think that that's a big question. It was such a former part of my history in my life. It's long gone now, but I think what it's done is allowed me to kind of understand how government works. That's the biggest thing, because I do oversee government relations as well at the organization. It really does kind of open your eyes to see how government works, and the various different ministries and all of the things that go around really supporting especially charitable organizations that are funded through various levels of government. So what it's allowed me to do is to really understand how each of the ministries and portfolios work, that we can kind of see, does this align with, Skills for Change's work in terms of any potential open calls for proposals that we can apply for, and get some additional funding for Skills for Change. So, that I think that's really been the most beneficial piece.
Yeah, I think getting a good amount of knowledge about how government work and the funding part of it, as you explained, it's quite interesting, and I think you were able to apply a lot of that knowledge by learning about how things work within the government. I think it's really useful, right?
It's also the other thing that it's really helped with, and it is very complex. Like, that whole process is extremely complex. So to have that kind of background understanding really does help, but it also helps to understand the specific community needs. So when I was out there and I was doing politics, before my time at Skills for Change, we were doing the daily kind of engagement with your community. And I think there's some synergies there in terms of, politicians going out and connecting with community, and, really that's their point person, right? If it's a city councilor, an MPP or an MP, that's their point person to say, this is what's happening in our community and we want, something to change, or we need access to resources. And that really mirrors the work that we do at Skills for Change, because we're always working with community and we want to understand what are the exact community needs before we actually develop programs. We don't want to do it outside of them, knowing that that's what the community need is. Otherwise, we're, not doing it in the best way in terms of ensuring the right supports for them. So I think that it's really interesting how they mirror each other in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Since you touched upon diversity, I wanted to ask you this one. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs are crucial, I feel, in today's workplace, right? So, in
Yes.
fact, Computek has partnered with CTP, the Canadian Tamil Professionals Association, recently to provide accreditation for their DEI workshop. So, what are some challenges and opportunities you have encountered while developing these programs at Skills for Change?
Um, I think, Skills for Change has been doing it for a long, long time. And we even launched a Diversity at Work conference every year that
Mhm.
we started in back in 2009, I would say, before most companies were doing anything around that. So it was quite visionary for Skills for Change to be doing that. And we've been doing that for over 10 years now. So I think
Wow.
some of the opportunity has been the engagement piece with the community, right? Like
Mhm.
really um, specifically around employer engagement,
Mhm.
which is a big part of our work. We work with employers on an everyday basis to hire and
Mhm.
train our clients and give our clients an opportunity to get, whether it's their first experience in Canada or working with communities that may have additional barriers that our employers are understanding of and take into account as they bring them on as hirees. But a lot of employers that we work with are small to medium sized businesses that don't have the big HR departments or things like that, learning and development departments. So I think the opportunity is that we are there as a resource to really help them to understand how do they advance those in the
Mhm.
workplace, whether it's through a policy or a guideline, or
Mhm.
just ensuring that your recruitment practices are inclusive, or that
Mhm.
your company engagement is inclusive. So we do a
Mhm.
lot of that, and we also do a lot of thought leadership. So our CEO
Mhm.
and myself and others will go out and we'll speak about this in terms of providing practical examples of
Mhm.
what DEI looks like in the workplace. I
Mhm.
think what the challenges are is that, especially for an organization like ours or organizations that employ a really diverse staff. We employ a very diverse staff, and I would say probably over 50 or 60% of our employees are newcomers, made up of newcomers. So, where it gets challenging, where you have to really understand some components, is taking into account everyone's individual experience
Mhm.
and understanding that if you come from another country, that DEI might mean something very different to you
Yeah.
as what it means in Canada. So that part has been a little bit more challenging because we have to kind of understand that you might be at a different level of your learning journey. Not everyone is at the same level, and we have
Mhm.
to be very understanding and learn, figure out ways to get people to be at the same level. If some are about, a little bit more
Yeah.
advanced and some are just starting at their journey. So one thing that Skills for Change has done is we actually hired an outside organization to come in and run monthly anti-racism and anti-oppression training for our staff.
Wow.
And we
Mhm.
started it from the basics of what is ARAO, what does that even mean, and how does it impact you and your work. And then
Mhm.
we kind of split it off into various different components. And so we're running that every single month for this entire year. And we
Mhm.
are noticing that, thing, even for me, I feel like I'm a little bit further along in my journey, but I learned something completely new at every single
Mhm.
session, and things that I hadn't thought about before, and the way that I phrase things, and etc. And so it's really about ensuring that your staff have the right tools in place, and ensuring that we have to meet people where they're at in their journey
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
not make
Mhm.
any assumptions.
Yeah, totally. And we all know that Canada is so diverse and it's attracting a huge number of immigrants every single day. So Computech has been helping newcomers and immigrants for the past 30 plus years in training them with practical diplomas and so on.
Right.
And we feel proud that they come out with flying colors and they are able to establish and they are able to fly out with and establish themselves as successful professionals or even switch careers. Recently I spoke to a student who was from Pakistan. He
Hmm.
moved to Canada in 2016 and he was in HR industry for 20 years. And he wanted to embrace change and
Hmm.
basically doing a research how he can switch into a different career. And when he was doing his research, he found that IT is booming in Canada, right? So we
Yep.
all know that technology, the demand for technology, and through his research, he found out that cybersecurity is one of the interesting in the top
Yeah.
programs in demand, and that's how he studied at Computek, and now he's a successful cybersecurity analyst. He's
Yeah.
been in the industry for 3 years. So, switching from HR for 20 years and
Right.
then jumping into a different industry, it needs big guts, I would say,
Yeah.
or a lot of courage. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So we are so proud that we are able to help a lot of students like this person. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so with Skills for Change focus on aiding immigrants and newcomers, what unique challenges do these groups face in Canadian workplace according to you, and how does Skills for Change address these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the challenges that are, across the board, are the underlying kind of pieces around not accepting having Canadian experience, or companies not recognizing internationally trained kind of certifications.
Mhm.
There is a racism piece where somebody might look at your last name in the recruitment process and not, be inclined to interview or hire the person. So there's a slew of different issues, and a lot of the issues then end up resulting in newcomers underemployment. So newcomers
Mhm.
taking jobs that they are, overqualified for.
Yeah.
And really, like, the thing that's interesting is when we talk to employers, and we're trying to advance here, is to say, if you have somebody who's underemployed working for your company, you're not going to retain them, right? Unless you show
Mhm.
that you're having a growth trajectory in your
Mhm.
company. But if you do actually invest in that individual and they do have the experience, then you're going to get their full potential. You're going to get their full commitment to your work, because that's what they're trained to do. That's what they're passionate to do. But the fact that uh, there is going to be this shift to remove the Canadian work experience component
Mhm.
on your resume is a huge, huge, huge kind of step forward, right? In that, if employers now they have to remove the Canadian experience component, that we're giving our newcomers an advantage. Like, you're expecting that, 450,000 newcomers are coming per year, and that's just through the regular pathway. There's the refugees that are coming, and so many others that are coming to this country. And then if you're expecting them to have Canadian work experience, I mean, you're really limiting their potential. So I do see that there is, a lot of challenges, but I think that there are waves being made in order to reduce those barriers. And I think that this is the first time in a long time I've seen that there is this huge commitment towards reducing those barriers and getting those individuals into the workplace quicker. Along with that, and this could be a totally separate conversation for us, but you have a lot of other challenges that newcomers face in terms of just integration into Canada, and if you have children and getting them integrated into school, that idea of being isolated and really suffering from mental health issues, because you're feeling of isolation, you don't have your family, you don't have your community that you may have had back home. That is a totally separate thing. And I think what Skills for Change is recognizing is that we need to support our clients in that holistic manner in order for them to be fully successful. So it's not just good enough that they are in a job and they're settled from the career standpoint. We want to ensure that they feel that true success in Canada, where they are socially, culturally, economically successful, and feel like they're completely contributing to Canadian society.
Absolutely. So we have spoken a lot about skills for change and your role, and about stakeholder engagement and marketing and the evolution of marketing and so on.
Yeah.
So now shifting gears a bit, I'd like to ask you something personal. So being a mother of two, how do you manage work-life balance, and what advice would you give to parents navigating similar paths? I think this is really important,
Yeah.
even though it's a common question that I ask to a lot of my guests. I think every single guest has their own perspective, has their own experience of how they handle it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I am very fortunate that I work for an organization where I can get that work-life balance, and I recognize that, you know, a lot of folks aren't necessarily able to. But I think it is really from the get-go is understanding who your employer is, and ensuring that there's allowance of space for you to have to manage your, you know, children or your family life. I am not very great at work-life balance. I love my work, so I feel like you know, I'm always, you know, whether it's after hours or whatever, I'll check, I'll respond, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's a good thing to do. But I think that just having a network around you, for me, I'm very, very fortunate that I have family around. I have cousins and best friends, and my sister lives down the street. So if I, you know, I'm late for a pickup, she's there to pick the kids up. It's really about trying to have that network. And if you don't have that network, try your best to create that network for yourself. There are ways. You have to be on top of it, and engage, you know, your kids' schoolmates and their parents or any type of community around you so that you can have that support. Because I just don't think that it's possible. Like it is possible, but it's just very difficult if you don't have that community around you. I'm a big community person. My family and my extended friends and family around me you know, they walk through the door when they and there's no real, you know, don't come over at any time type of thing. So I think that's a big key takeaway around that. And I also think that, like, I just think that in general, women have been kind of molded in this way for years and years, to say that you can't do both. You can't be an executive and have small children. It is really tough. It's really, really tough to have a demanding job and have two small children at home. And there is that potential to have burnout. But I also think that women are so strong and resilient, and that, you know, that shouldn't be a reason why we don't do both. Because someone told us we can't, or kind of, you know, for 40, 50 years, you were told that you can only do one or the other. I think that it is definitely possible to do both. We are resilient enough to do it. So I just keep my head up every single day and tell myself, like, I deserve this job. I deserve this. You know, like I'm doing my best here, and, you know, just tell yourself as well that you're doing your best. And some things may get missed, but, you know, I think that if you believe that you can do it all, you certainly can do it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great message. But I'd like to end this podcast with a message from you for people who might be watching this podcast who are immigrants, who
Yeah.
can be students, or who can be our community partners, or anyone who is new to Canada. So, any message from Sampada?
Oh gosh. I think the message is that, you know, do something in terms of looking for your career. There are resources out there. There are people that will help. There are communities, organizations, there are companies and schools like Computek College that are there to support you, and just follow your dream of whatever you want to do, and just ask for the right help to get you to those places. That's what I would give the advice for, because I think that anyone has the potential to become who they want to be. But just ask the questions and ask for help, and you will get there.
I think that's a short and very valid message, I would say. Thank you so much, Sampada. I really can't believe that half an hour flight in a matter of in the blink of an eye, I would say. But thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I'm pretty sure that people who are watching this podcast have a lot of things to take away. Thank you so much for your time once again. And I hope, this new year turned to be a much more productive one for you and for Skills for Change. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Aishwarya. This was really, really fun, and I really appreciate you having me. And happy holidays, and, you know, look forward to 2024.
Thank you so much. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. That way, you show us your support, which will encourage and motivate us to record many such interesting and useful videos. Until I see you next time, it's Aishwarya signing off with Sampada. Take care.
Take care.